How can you hear that and just not get hyped? Ugh, it's so good. Hey everyone, it's Part-Time Video Gamer, and we're living in crazy times. We're talking about a Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie in 2024 and now in early 2025, based off of a Sega Dreamcast game that later got re-released to other consoles that came out at the tail end of the 90s and the early 2000s. This is just wild. It's crazy times, like I said. Growing up as a video gamer in the 90s, there was a clear distinction between two of the big companies, and this is where the genesis, pun intended, of the console war started. That was between Nintendo and Sega. You know, they were the juggernauts of the time. They would go after each other in their marketing campaigns, and anybody who was remotely interested in video games knew about Nintendo and Sega. They knew about Mario and Sonic. And growing up, before I was old enough to be making money and have stuff myself, I would always ask for like consoles and stuff. There would be these big gifts, you know, you'd ask for them for Christmas, or, you know, I'd save up money I was able to scrape together throughout the year and then combine that as part of my birthday gift to get a console. And so growing up, it's like I had to choose between these two systems, and early on the decision was made for me, and it was I got a Nintendo console. You know, one of my first consoles that I got was a Super Nintendo. So that kind of set my trajectory that I was playing Nintendo consoles, but I was always very aware of Sega and Sonic, and, you know, there was even memes back then where it's like, you know, I'd play Sonic games at friends' houses, or, you know, even play something like Sonic CD. I vividly remember the first time I ever got to play 3D Sonic. And I was spending the night at a friend's house, and I use the term friend loosely because it's kind of one of those things, like if you have a group of friends, like maybe let's say 5 friends, and you're friends with 3 of the other people in that group, but the 4th one is a friend of somebody else, and like you never really have direct connection with that other friend. Well, this is how me and that friend were. So we were like kind of friends by proxy, definitely the weakest link in the chain. And I was spending the night at his house, and, you know, he had lots of stuff, and I was always like, man, how do you have all these things? But he had this video game system called a Dreamcast, and I remember I had seen commercials about this system, and I was like, man, what is a Dreamcast? It looks so cool. The commercials were kind of weird, but like super intriguing. I was over at his house, and I was like, oh, you have a Dreamcast? And he's like, yeah, you want to see it? And he took me downstairs in his basement where he had like this big setup. I think his dad was a big audio video guy, and so he had this sweet setup, this big, you know, I wanted to say flat screen. It wasn't flat screen. It was like this huge, deep TV. He had a Dreamcast, and he opened up this little jewel case, and there's a picture of Sonic on the CD, and he put it in the Dreamcast, and he started it, and I'll never forget seeing and hearing the sounds of the Dreamcast start up, and then going to the home screen and the start screen, and like, you know, the select your character, and seeing the 3D models of these characters, you know. And at this time we had just taken that big jump going into 3D with, like, you know, Nintendo and Sony with the PlayStation and Sega with the Dreamcast, you know, even though the Dreamcast would be very limited, which it's a different video for a different time, but the Dreamcast is legitimately an amazing and very fascinating story. But all of the developers were making their jump to 3D. And I remember we started playing Sonic Adventure, and my mind was just blown. Seeing Sonic and all of his friends, but particularly him, just move in the 3D space and move so fast. And when I was very familiar and acquainted with games like Sonic 2 and Sonic CD, this was crazy. I remember we were doing like the Lost World level, running around by the cliff, and then you had to like jump onto this like moving snake that was going all around. And it was crazy. Like, the physics were crazy. How fast Sonic could go. My friend was getting frustrated because I kept like running off the side, but I'm like, he has so much speed. This is so different from anything I've played on a Nintendo system. This is crazy. And I remember, like, I just was enthralled with it. I was like, what is this? I remember my friends, like, we played for a while, and he was like, okay, let's go do something else. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you have a Dreamcast, you got Sonic Adventure, this is what I want to do. Suffice it to say, we didn't stay friends that long. Not because of that night, but it's just, yeah, we just did not click. But I'll never forget that experience. It really was my first experience with 3D Sonic. You know, holding that Dreamcast controller, him running around everywhere, doing my first Lightspeed dash. It was crazy. To be honest, my first true experience with Sonic would happen a handful of years later after the Dreamcast had gone out in a blaze of glory, which, again, I need to do a video about the Dreamcast because it is just a wild story. A console really ahead of its time. It wasn't until a few years later when Sega would hang up the hardware, go to software only, start re-releasing some of their games on different consoles of that era. Now we're on to the GameCube, the PS2, Microsoft stepping in with the Xbox. And I would get the opportunity to play this game called Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And it was a re-release of Sega's Sonic Adventure 2, which I didn't even know really happened at the time because, again, you know, I'm mostly living in a one console world, you know, Nintendo, and later in that generation I would get a PS2 alongside my GameCube, but I had no idea that there was a Sonic Adventure 2. I remember playing Sonic Adventure at my friend's house. Sonic Adventure 2 for me really was my first experience with 3D Sonic. And I remember once I found out that the game was on GameCube, I saved up enough money and I bought this game. And I remember driving home, you know, with my parents and looking at the game, looking at the case and just being like, man, this is so cool. It's like that Sonic game on Dreamcast, but now it's on GameCube. It was just such a wild thing to me to be like, Sega always does their own consoles, and now I'm playing Sonic on a Nintendo console. It kind of didn't feel right, you know, it was just a precursor of what was to come. I remember opening that case, looking at the disc, popping it into my GameCube, seeing, you know, the Sega logo come up and the Sonic team, and then that opening cinematic, Sonic and Shadow kind of running at each other, and that title screen, and my first time hearing that live and learn intro sound, and it goes into that hard rock, and we're just rocking, baby. And I was like, what is this? This is so awesome. This is 3D Sonic. And then starting up the game, and you know, you get to choose the different path of the hero and the dark story. And you know, it's like of course I chose Sonic because I don't know who these dark characters are. I don't know about Shadow and all of them yet. You watch that first cutscene and Sonic is like hanging out of the gun helicopter, and then, you know, he breaks off the door and he's like spinning down into the city, and then the level's starting and you're just falling down, and this hot track is dropping. It's got some slap bass in it. It's like, what is going on? And then you're like street boarding down this big street of something that looks like a city in like San Francisco or something. And we're going, we got a little city escape, you know, it's just like rolling around at the speed of sound. I'm like, what is happening? And it was incredible. I've never felt something like that. Just this whole level. Again, it was that same feeling that I'd only gotten a taste of with my friends. Sonic was so fast. He moved so fluidly, jumping, spinning, rolling, all these different sections. Like, he could grind in this game, which was, you know, that was a crazy new thing. And then you get to the end of this level and you get chased by a truck. It's just all this cool stuff. It was like they took everything from Sonic Adventure and they just amped it up. I don't know if the developers knew at the time that Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast would be a swan song of sorts, but they definitely pulled out all the stops for this game. And though, you know, upon deep diving this game and like really breaking down the gameplay and stuff, it's not perfect. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it did refine so many things, and I feel like it really captured the sense of speed in a 3D world, particularly in the Sonic and the Shadow sections. That was awesome. It also kept just a really distinct gameplay between, you know, the Sonic and Shadow, and then you got Knuckles and Rouge and Eggman and Tails. Like, all of them, they felt distinct and unique and with cool, like, quirks to each of the gameplay. And man, the game had some incredible boss sequences. You know, I even feel like I can't spoil this, even though this game has been out so long. If you've not played this game, you need to go play it. But some of the ending bosses are incredible. And people really wanted to make a game that was special, something with love. Like I mentioned, it's not a perfect game. But this game is very important in the fact that I believe this was the game that saved 3D Sonic. Now, I know that feels like a very big statement, and you're like, what are you talking about? It's like, we had better 3D Sonic games with Sonic Unleashed, or you might be someone be like Sonic Colors, and I'm not taking away from those games. Those games are good, or Sonic Generations, people are going to save that. But Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and I'm going to specify Battle in particular, is the game that saved 3D Sonic. Because, like I've mentioned throughout this video, the Dreamcast was a console ahead of its time. Sega was really pulling out all the stops, but they couldn't overpower Sony and the PlayStation and just the behemoth that it was in that generation. And so they had to fold to that. And Sonic had made an incredible jump to 3D with Sonic Adventure, like I said. Anybody who played Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, you talk to them, I'm sure they'll have a similar story to mine of just feeling floored by the sense of speed and the 3D model, like playing Sonic in this world and the physics, like all of it. But because the Dreamcast went out with a bang, there were so many people that didn't get to experience that. And because of that, the Sonic franchise was in a major tough spot of people not being exposed to Sonic and 3D Sonic, and therefore not really caring to play the next iteration of the Sonic games. But Sega made the crazy move to do software only, no more hardware, and we're going to put our games on these different previously competitor systems. And because of that, they were able to create a huge install base of people who would play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the first time and experience 3D Sonic. And I really believe this is why this game had such an impact for so many people who didn't get to play it on Dreamcast, because Dreamcast was a little bit more of a niche system, because there were some people who had felt even a little bit burnt by Sega with, you know, the Sega Saturn and the Sega CD that had come before it, maybe who are hesitant to go full in on Dreamcast. There's a lot of factors, like I said. Dreamcast really needed its own video. But so many people didn't get to experience Sonic's jump into 3D, and so Sonic Adventure 2 Battle in particular was really the game that gave people that first experience. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's crazy. We're living in crazy times that in 2025 and 2024, we were talking so much about Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which the film is majorly ripping the plot from Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. That's how deep this game cut into the cultural zeitgeist. People love this game. I mean, if you go into the Sonic community, you will find much love for the Sonic Adventure games, and I think particularly more for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And, you know, that can be a debate for a different time. I'm not trying to say which game is better than the other, because both games have a lot of strengths, and there's things I love about Sonic Adventure. I could make a whole video about that. But Sonic Adventure 2, again, was this special because it came at this major turning point for the character. If Sega had not chosen to do this, I just don't think 3D Sonic would be what it is today. And yes, Sonic has had a lot of missteps in 3D, but so many people fondly remember Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It's where they got to do 3D Sonic for the first time. Like I mentioned Sonic Adventure versus Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I don't really like to look at these games in like a comparison, like a contest of which is better, but I view these games more in a relationship similar to something like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, where they're built from very much the same foundation, but the games use a lot of similar assets and techniques and gameplay, but then they diverge majorly in how they implement some things. And you kind of can't have one game without the other. I mean, I know you can have Sonic Adventure without Sonic Adventure 2, obviously, but the games work in this way where it's like one established the formula, created this new thing that would become the foundation, so it's needed, but then the second follow-up game iterated and in some ways refined systems that were presented in the previous game, but also created some very different new things. And it is crazy to think that a move made by a company that had gambled and bet it all on this Dreamcast console and now was moving to just becoming a software developer, it's crazy to think that that move and one game in particular would be able to cement a character and keep him moving forward throughout video game history. Because now, you know, that game is so dearly beloved by fans. You know, for so long, like I said, if you dig into the Sonic fandom, there's people who are saying, give us Sonic Adventure 3. We want a third Sonic Adventure. Or there's people who say, just remaster Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Adventure 2. Like, that's all we want. It's not a perfect game, but it's a dearly beloved game. There's things, there's gameplay, there's mechanics that really work in this game. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't complete a ton of games. It's not really my thing. You know, I really have to love a game. I really have to love something about it to do it. And for me to go the mat, to get all these emblems, and to get S ranks on so many missions for all these characters and levels that I hate, I've got to really love a game. It's got to be really impactful. And Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, it did it for me. It did it for me. And, you know, you get the little battle stuff in there. Like, you know, they put some extra little treats in there so they could kind of rename it Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. But, you know, it was always fun to have a little couch co-op. You know, play with your siblings, race them in the speed levels. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Nobody did the treasure emerald hunting. Nobody did the mech, Tails, and Eggman stuff. No one did that. Everybody was being like, we're going to race Sonic Shadow. We'll have Amy. We'll have Metal Sonic. Like, that's where it was at. That's what everyone wanted to do. And music. This game had some bangers, like I mentioned. You got Live and Learn. It's just like the hype anthem of hype anthems. You know, I will say, I'm going to get some hate for this. Between Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Live and Learn, I think, is better than Open Your Heart. I'm probably going to get hate for that. Open Your Heart's great. It's a rocker. Live and Learn, it just takes it to a different level. For me, Live and Learn is where it's at. But you've got so many bangers. You've got Live and Learn. You've got Escape from the City. Knuckles has got some surprising stuff. Him and Rouge, they've got, you know, they got some hip-hop. You know, they're speaking my language. They're talking to me. You got a little Pumpkin Hill in there. Oh, my goodness. They're so cheesy, but they're so good. And do I know the lyrics to those songs? Yeah, I do. And like I started this video, we live in crazy times, and it's a crazy time that we're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is essentially a film version of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and you can trace the history to a time gone by when we were all playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and how that would all tie back in to where we are now. I do love this game. So many good memories with it. It really did teach me how to live and learn.
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog! I see, but you know, I can't let you live. Your adventuring days are coming to an end.
So last time I pulled the game that was Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. So here's my 2 cents about that game. It was a kind of on rails House of the Dead style shooter that I feel like got really popular on the Wii, so everybody was doing them, and you're like, oh, do the Wii Zapper. It's pretty forgettable. There's better light gun shooters on the Wii. Sin and Punishment, for example, the Sin and Punishment Star Successor, I think that's the name of it. Really good one. And let's pull something for today. I know my games, so I think I'm gonna go something here. Oh boy. Kingdom Hearts HD 2.5 Remix. They always have the craziest names for these games. Oh man. This has gotta be its own video. I can't just do a little sum up of it. But really, Kingdom Hearts it's its own maze to get through, and I don't think I ever got out of it.